Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rage the Mohawk. I don't really make that much content. I will occasionally post comments or things like that, but I'm not much into the content creator space. It's not really my thing. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because there's a content creator that I watch quite a bit. Um, Arch, your videos, like your long form lore content, really does help kind of help a day go by so that way it's not as slow as old people fuck. And I appreciate that, especially on like a Friday or a Saturday. Like if I've got a large scale shipment that I got to get in or whatever have you, it does tend to help get the day go by. Now, you also have your Archcast channel, and you actually posted a video today. Now, for full transparency, the video that you're responding to the comments of, I didn't actually watch that video. So, I really only have this video to base it off of, because I don't want to watch two 1 hour long, 2 hour long videos. And more importantly, the reason why I'm responding to this video is because some of the things that you said in this video, I'm not going to lie, kind of pissed me off. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe nobody else has a similar opinion. I don't know. But I'd like to exercise kind of putting my opinion out there on the subject matter to see if, well, maybe there's a miscommunication. Obviously, English isn't your first language. I get that. But I really feel like you need to be wary of two things. One, being wary of the weapons and tools of the adversary, i.e., their language, and two, ego. So, I'm going to switch the video over to actual screen share, well, screen recorder. For anybody else who potentially watches the video, or anybody in general, fuck if I know. In the background, I'm going to be playing RuneScape, of all things. The gaming industry has been so bad, I've gone back to something that I played in 2006. There you go. Alright, let's get this going. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing, but let's see how it turns out. Screen share is on. Get that going. Get that up. Alright, let's get the video going.
Honestly, I don't think the disagreement here is all that large, honestly. Even though, I think that video still cost me like 200 subscribers, but, well, at the end of the day, if...
I mean, there are a lot of people that are very fickle, but it's also a case of being somewhat wary if people start changing out their position. I'm not necessarily going to run with the sort of accusatory that maybe you've been hanging out with Dev too much. But I can say that the middle grounder positions that you've been taking recently, it kind of flies in the face of a lot of the other stuff that you've said in the past. So, your positions are kind of confusing for a lot of people because, unfortunately, how do I? Being a centrist is cringe and gay. That's really all I can say. So, anyway.
If a differing opinion is enough to chase somebody away, then it was something I could do to begin with. And I genuinely do believe, incidentally, that if this is not a point that the right, quote, heavy, unquote, can learn from, then we are doomed to simply repeat the journey of the left. But possibly even...
One thing that I'd like to gently remind people, and actually there's an interesting video out there by Razor Fist that talks about Hollywood, being that it's always had sort of a commie leaning. I think that one of the big things that a lot of the, specifically gamers, don't necessarily understand is that they only started paying attention once their hobby was getting attacked. And to be fair, myself, I mean, that's kind of when I started noticing it, like 2013, 2014. But if you look back even further, well, I mean, the left had been on a slow cultural march since like the 1940s. You know, it's only when they started going after video games that gamers and hobbyists started noticing. But it was because the left started noticing that these hobbies were picking up in favor. They started gaining eyeballs. So they shift their focus from movies. I mean, they still had control over movies, but they also had control now in the video game industry. So, like I said, there's a video by Razor Fist that I do tend to recommend to a lot of people.
Speedier than it did. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to see another wave of progressivism in my lifetime, if at all possible. So, let's see. Let's open that up. And
We haven't seen the end of this wave of progressivism. So, it seems like, in a way, you're counting your chickens before they hatch. Like, we're not through this wave of cultural Marxism yet. It We're still dealing with it. We haven't even gotten back to a central position, let alone a conservative position. Like, Dragon Age the Veilguard popped off like what, a month and a half, 2 months ago with a Barv. We're still in the middle of this. Hell, Ubisoft still hasn't released Shadows. So, talking about the next wave of progressivism, uh, yeah, I think that in all honesty, you're thinking a little too far ahead. We have to deal with the enemies that are currently inside the embattlement, inside the fortification, before we can think about the next wave of the hill.
you were supposed to be a different tab. God, I've forgotten how to do all of this after my 1 week vacation. Never again, chat. Never again.
I enjoy days off, but I despise vacations, so I sincerely sympathize. You pay too much money to go see tourist shit, and 9 times out of 10 it's awful. So I truly sympathize with you on that one, Arch.
I do not wish to leave my house ever again. Pirate King Thazar for 5 late. Your stick is $5 to VTuber Arch Fund. Considering hiccups, those damn models cost like 10 grand. That's going to be a hiccups lengthy fund. Alex Anderson, here's a unique take. Case 72 is only woke if you choose to make it thus. Every gamer should have a choice to make it as woke or based as he or she wishes. When was free choice ever a bad thing? Well, that is one of the interesting arguments, isn't it? Because one of the primary arguments from the developers of KCD2's argument side was, well, why did you add in the gay romance? Why could you bang your best friend? A thing I still deeply disagree with. The argument was player choice. Okay, I see it. I even partially agree with it. I'm of the mind that characters should largely be player sexual and leave it up to the player himself to determine.
I understand a lot of people have that position of the quote-unquote player sexual. But I'm kind of the opinion that it makes characters and storytelling absolutely hollow. I mean, look, I never played Baldur's Gate 3. I have zero intention of playing Baldur's Gate 3. And I could probably go on a very long diatribe as to why I think that D&D has gotten completely fucked. And I mean, I could be wrong. I was never really a D&D guy. But I feel as though effectively making characters quote-unquote player sexual hollows the characters out. It also cheapens any storytelling. You have these massive set pieces and these massive events that like could change whatever world. You know, massive battles, giant monsters, demons, whatever have you. Oh, but we're at camp. Do you want to bang? It's kind of like, I'm kind of prepping for what we have to do tomorrow in order to survive. I'm really not interested in your gender bent bullshit, or like we have higher priorities in the storytelling than, basically a Mass Effect semi nude cutscene. It's kind of like, I understand that, like, not everything's like a sanctity of marriage or monogamy or that or whatever have you. I get it, trust me. But at the same time, like, take like something like The Walking Dead or something like that. It's like, I'm not really gonna be in a great frame of reference of like, oh, I really want to bang this person. It's like, I'm checking my ammunition. I'm checking to make sure that there are no potential breaches in the fortification. I'm making sure that people aren't going wacko. Making sure that people freaking, checking for bites, checking for what beans, bullets, and bandages. I'm trying to take care of the basic amenities in order to keep a settlement up in operation versus who I'm choosing to stick my dick into, I suppose is my point. So, anyway.
And what character they want to get it on with. However, if that is your argument, why can't you kill Musa of Mali? Why can't you kill every vital NPC? Why can't you simply Morrowind this bitch and have a pop-up come up like, with the death of this character, the thread of fate has been severed? Do you wish to continue to persist in this doomed world, right? Why can't you just do that? And
God, I remember Morrowind. I can't count how many times, fucking out of sheer frustration, I cut those strands of fate by killing characters that I shouldn't have. But it's kind of interesting in that a lot of games nowadays, instead of trying to tell an interesting story, are just attempting to blank slate. Now, games back in the day who did it at least had a very good functioning world. The 9 times out of 10, the economies in the game world were absolutely garbage, but the worlds themselves felt, at least to some degree, a living, breathing, ecosystem. So that was really kind of nice, in that you could absolutely screw the game up. But it's one of those things that, in order to effectively tell good storytelling, you can't just blank slate everything. You've got to give characters motivations. You've got to give them objectives. And you have to base them within the reality of the universe they're within. So, yeah.
KCD2 is already a rather linear game, where a lot of the quests can only be solved uno, were you? So, the whole, like, player choice argument somewhat falls apart, but in KCD2's defense, then again, it is actually really difficult to make a genuinely branching story, because if you have 3 different solutions to a quest, you now need 3 different sets of dialogues to recognize those 3 different solutions. And then you might need 3 different spiraling paths as to the consequences of that solution. Which is why all of the games that promises, like, your choices matter, they never really do, simply because until we have AI capable of generating new quest paths and responses organically, we'll never really have that choice. Although many games do it far better than KCD2 does. So, Lux Doppelganger, you need to debate Raging Golden Eagle about this. Oh, I think I already know his stance largely, though, because I think Raging Golden Eagle's position is mostly, I simply don't want to engage with Western media anymore. I am going to move away from it entirely, which is a fair and honest proposition as well, but then you go, okay, either you sever yourself entirely from entertainment, which sucks, or you heavily curate your entertainment, either by going towards Asian entertainment, which has its own promises and pitfalls, or by going solely.
This is kind of a side note and kind of just a side tangent, but I did find it very funny that when you had games journalists, like before COVID, but when, like, conservatives and predominantly Donald Trump was ragging or banging the drums against China, how, oh, you were a racist, you were, basically you were a piece of shit. Right? How dare you besmirch the honor of good China, right? But then as the games industry became absolute garbage. And Chinese media predominantly was taking over, taking that top spot. And unfortunately, it's usually with a clone of a game, but it has TNA. It has jiggle physics, and the women aren't they haven't been hit repeatedly with the ugly stick. All of a sudden, games journalists started going on tirades about how, Chinese games are the lowest common denominator. They're taking over Western media. They're destroying it. We can't allow this to happen. Are you going to allow them to circumvent and supplant, the glories of Western media? And I've been relatively consistent in that I'm not going to play a Chinese made game because I don't support the Chinese Communist Party. Or at least I hope I'm not playing anything that supports the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, you've got Tencent, Temu, Snail Games, and a bunch of others that are basically taking over all over, the games industry. And I'm honestly doing my level best to avoid them because there are moral reasons why it's like, no, I'm not going to support this. One, I do believe that simply going after TNA, there are sites for that. There's already a specific type of game genre for that, for the people who are interested in it, right? Like, I feel like it's a quick race to the bottom. I feel as though that, how do I put it? If your game is only surviving because the game mechanics that you use have basically been blatant rip-offs of Western games, but you've added TNA, no real quality story. I've heard Black Myth Wukong is good, but once again, I'm not touching it. But it's one of those things where I feel like it's a quick race to the bottom. I know a lot of people were giving, what was that? I can't remember the name of that chick's name, but she was getting a lot of grief recently. And basically, I guess, like, she said something that set a lot of gamers off, and something along the lines of, like, don't be sad losers, or something. Like, if I played this game, I'd feel like a sad loser. And gamers got really pissed because the implication is that, well, if they like this stuff, they're sad losers. And it's like, okay, I can get how that feels like an attack, but I also feel that if you rely on TNA to sell your product, it's just another type of race to the bottom where the left, they put their ideological politics and their degeneracy on full display, and you must accept it, and that's what makes a good game. You just simply saying, we want our degeneracy too, and that's all we care about. It's like, okay, well then, quality storytelling, quality mechanics, the invention of newer engines, maybe not newer. Well, yeah, because, I mean, everybody's using Unreal, God knows whatever fucking number. But what I feel the big problem is that, unfortunately, we're basically just trying to, like, who can hit the bottom faster instead of trying to raise the industry up. And I feel this is partially that none of us are picking up the torch. None of us are going like, well, if they can't make good video games, I guess one of us is going to have to. And I mean, there's plenty of indie developers that are, so here's hoping that there's still some light at the end of the tunnel. But anyway, we'll continue on.
Only into indie developers, only picking and choosing the bits and pieces you wish to play, and that's an entirely valid choice as well, so I don't think there'd be too much disagreement there. Father Jack Enlightened, until the bad actors are gone out, there's nothing you can do to save an IP. You have to either kick them out or bury the IP for a later date. Well, that is one of the questions we're going to get into then, because it's the question of corruption, isn't it? See, what was that Stone Toss comic? What was that Stone Toss comic? Let me see if I can find it on my Twitter, actually. I promise we'll get to the actual, comments in a moment, I swear. Where was it? I know I tweeted it, but then I went on vacation and the numbers of my tweets increased drastically because I had nothing better to do. Where the hell was it? Ah, yes, there we go. Right. Because this was one of those rare Stone Toss L's where, why can't... I don't want it, go away. Why can't game companies stop at the DI and be more like Valve 2004? Hey, I'm Black Science Man. Please mind my daughter, you're Blasian GF. This is not wokeism. Simply having a black character is not wokeism. Because if that is wokeism, then most of gaming has been woke and has always been woke, and I don't think we want to make that argument because it sounds rather self-defeating. It is the surrender argument, like, oh, if there's a gay romance, it's woke and we must abandon it. I mean, it's abandoning the entire Mass Effect trilogy to the wokeists.
Yeah, fuck it. Abandon it. Abandon ship. I mean, Dragon Age the Veilguard was good for... I only played the first two. I never played Inquisition, but I mean, I heard nothing but good things about Inquisition, even though there's yeah. But the thing is that you can kind of tell. I'll use an example that Arch you might understand. In fact, no, I'm pretty sure you'll understand because you've used it as an example in like your Siege of Vrox videos at explaining chaos, right? I think it was in the Vrox videos where you give a little bit of power to this thing and you feed it, and then it gnaws at you. It never lets you go, never lets you sleep until it gets what it wants, and it will continue to feed. And unfortunately, I feel like that even in Mass Effect and in Dragon Age, this stuff got fed pretty early on, but it was a vegan diet to begin with. It just barely enough to get it by. But now that it's gotten enough in its belly, it's been able to expand. And unfortunately, we are dealing with a very nasty Slaaneshi cult in a lot of these games. Using Baldur's Gate as the example, just like the bestiality. They really have just gone like, we're not hiding it anymore. Congratulations, welcome to the Slaaneshi cult.
I don't want them to have that. I'd rather simply go like, oh, there's a gay romance, it's an LGBT story. No, it's just a player option. That's all it is. It's not for your side. It's not for political reasons. It's literally just people wanted to bang this character. Simple. And I suppose that is really the key differential there. What is woke then becomes the question. And my personal definition would be when politics is involved. When you bring in the intersectional element.
How do you make that delineation? For instance, and look, this is probably me being far more jaded than I should be. And God knows I'm a jaded son of a bitch. But back in the day, I'll give an example of a fantastic set of movies. And, people can shake their heads and go, oh, you're one of those guys. But, like, the Lethal Weapons movies, right? I never had any quandary about freaking the buddy cop duo, like, oh, one's an older black guy. I really didn't give a shit. I mean, dude's fucking fantastic. Predator 2, don't worry, I'm a cop. I don't think he gives a shit, right? I mean, I grew up watching, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Living Single, and not once did I ever have any sort of considerations of political or ideological motivations with these particular shows. Not once. But now as an adult watching the vast majority of this media, I am super suspect. And maybe that means that my dial is, you know, tuned up too high. It's infinitely possible. It could be I'm just an asshole. I don't know. But I always tend to run with the idea nowadays where it is better to suspect that it's ideological garbage and be proven incorrect later. I'm a big enough boy, I'm a big enough man that if it's proven in my assertion is proven incorrect at a later date, but like, oh, okay, I was wrong about that one. But now I rather run from a position that I suspect it's a Slaneshi cult than get halfway into it and then be like, oh, fuck. I just wasted hours of my life dealing with this crap or, giving them my money. Great. Awesome.
Element. That is key. Woke cannot simply be a black character, although it can be a black character. The intent behind the introduction of the change or the character needs to be what decides whether or not it is woke. So, for example, Alex, would not be a DEI hire, whereas Concord would have plenty of them. But that, of course, also...
Concord was just pure DEI. I mean, nothing, there was nothing else.
Introduces the problem of guessing one's intentions. Musa of Mali, again, this is why KCD2 is such a brilliant example for this. If, when it comes out later on, that Daniel Vavra is like, yes, I put Musa of Mali in the game solely to piss off Christians, then that was obviously a...
I think I know where you're going with this one, and do you think that he would have the set of knackers required to have that level of honesty if that was the case? Or would he make an excuse? I mean, don't get me wrong. There have been plenty of video game devs that have felt that they have reached a position of being untouchable, and so they could say some hellacious shit. But being that this guy really only has the 2 games under his belt, do you think that he would have the brass balls required to just say, yeah, I was just fucking with my audience? Like, this was a historical piece, but I just really wanted to screw with my own audience. There was a video not too long ago where, what was it? Like, your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty. And I think in that video, either you or somebody else had made mention that we will never know the 100% circumstances, because he was rattling off excuse after excuse after excuse as to why something could potentially be dog shit. And it was either you or somebody else was like, well, we're never going to know. You're not going to come out and tell us, yeah, we just suck at our jobs. So we can only judge it based upon the end product. With this, you're irrespective of whether he did it for historical reasons or like historical reasons, or he did it to piss off his own audience. I don't think we're ever going to know.
Very, very woke thing to do. But if you put him in because he read the travels of... What was that Muslim scholar dude? Ibn Rusta? I don't remember now. And he was like, huh, that's kind of cool. They put one of those in, then fair enough. Ignoring the woke. Was that one right? No, it scrolled by itself, you silly YouTube thing. And until the bad actors are gone there too. Now the bad actors will, but how do we remove the bad actors though? That gets back to the immediate stick question. How do we cancel an IP? Well, again, by wielding the majority against the minority. Since we cannot cancel a product by ourselves. If we could, then GW.
Alright, this is kind of the beginning of the part that really set me off. Like I said, I've watched through like 2/3 of the video before coming to the conclusion that I wanted to make this video reply. It's more of an audio reply just with some background shit. But you get my point. I'm going to run this section about the quote-unquote stick uninterrupted. and then I'm gonna put my reply, and then we'll move forward.
You would already be bankrupt. If we could, EA would have been dead long ago, and so on and so on. We need the majority to dance to our flute in order to effectively cancel these companies. Reverend Norse, goddammit, you. What's going on? Reverend Norse, nah, Lum Lum said she could probably get you rigged arch as a rigged arch cat as a model for cheaper price. So blame the footfish for the Lumi cast arch. VTuber fund. What, rigging on my cat model? Oh, if you ask Lumi what that would cost. I wouldn't imagine the cat model would do much other than shake. Father Jack the Enlightened, and that means withholding support, don't give dollars. Yes, but whose dollars? Again, our dollars don't really matter. Even if everyone watching right now, so about, a little under 700 people, if 700 people decided to not buy a video game...
Ah, fuck, I said I was going to not interrupt. I was just going to let the point go through. Okay, I'm going to make one minor point, and that is that 700 people, though it may sound insignificant, if you look at the active player numbers of, say, Dragon Age the Veilguard, well, I think they barely have 700 players playing their game right now, and it's fucking free. I really think that you're kind of undervaluing or, not really exclaiming how much power one has in a particular IP. Not to mention the fact that, I think that you brought up, Call of Duty or whatnot, and, yeah, Call of Duty is just ass cancer. But the thing is that we're never, COD heads, we're never going to be able to convince them that their game is trash. And you know what? In all honesty, if that's what they like, that's what they like. I'm screw it. It's I'm not going to be able to convince them that, it's hey, they haven't updated, other than maybe some minor graphical improvements, you've basically been playing the same game since, Modern Warfare 2. So, but I really think that you're undervaluing the audience that one potentially has. And keep in mind that, if there's 700 people that are saying no, they're also probably telling their friends. And let's say they're a complete fucking shut-in who's got maybe two friends. And they manage to convince those two friends. Well, that 700 now becomes 2,100. Like I said, it's one of those things where I really think you're underselling and undervaluing the level of power that we potentially have. Especially for a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which that's not a COD title. I mean, I don't know what its max player count is going to be, but it's never going to ever approach a COD title. And playing pretend it's all of a sudden this big genre-defining game when it's a niche game for niche players. 700 people could actually probably make a pretty big difference in terms of in that particular game. Anyway, now I'm going to shut my trap and not interrupt until the point where I felt like I was going to have a blood vessel pop.
Would that be a serious impediment to the video game? Not really. In fact, it would be next to nothing. This is why the whole cancel them with your wallet, vote with your wallet, doesn't work. Now, voting with everybody else's wallet, valid. This is when the accent comes through again, finally, as the V word is difficult to me. Voting with everybody else's wallet is effective, because then you can affect tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And that is, again, where the stick comes in. So, Joe, the problem with... Goddammit, stop scrolling. The problem with ignoring the vote cancer is that if vote cancer will spread, you cannot ignore it. You have to exercise it. Curry Fun, Star Sector, Archcat. Archcat. Now, this too is correct, but once more... Okay, let's get it... We'll need to explain this point first, I think. We need to do that to begin with. I was going to do that via the comment section, but we'll just get straight to it, shall we? So, stick. What is the stick? And I agree, this was my biggest failing in the Why We Must Claim video, was that I did not adequately categorize and lay out exactly what the stick is, because I kind of thought it was obvious, honestly. So this is the stick. This is what we use to exercise the cancer, right? This is what we use against the companies to get them to do what we want, to not add in politics into video games, or enforce diversity, etc. This is the weapon wielded against Marvel, against DC, against Star Wars, and so on. But what is the stick? Is the stick us? No. The stick is not us because we are a very small stick. We are not even this large of a stick. We are a tiny stick. We are a very small stick. We are, in the grand scheme of things, utterly inconsequential as far as sticks go. Even if you were to, like, mobilize, like, the entire audience, so, like, a huge YouTuber, if you were to mobilize every one of, like, Nerdrotic subscribers, like, what's that, 2 million people or something? Even that wouldn't be enough to deal with a company like Disney. Now, it could probably deal with a company like the size of BioWare, for example, but even in that case, we still wouldn't be able to deal with...
It seems like you defeated your own point. I know I said I wasn't going to interrupt until he got all the way through it. But, as you said, 2 million people could screw with a BioWare game. I mean, yeah. Like, the stick that, like... If you're going to use a stick, let's use it as a fishing rod for a second. The type of fishing rod you need to use is in proportion to what you're trying to catch. If you're talking about changing the world, or catching the world serpent, or a great white, yes, you need a significantly larger reinforced stick, as well as a foundation to seed it into. But in order to catch a tuna, yes, you do need a decently reinforced fishing rod. But the stick or rod in this case is proportioned to what you're trying to catch or what you're trying to change. So once again, I feel like you're kind of kicking your own audience and gamers in general in the dick here, personally.
With something like the Disney prequels, which sold how many...
Oh, and I'm going to stop doing the farm stuff. I'm going to go do something else. Just that way the video isn't just this repeat behavior. Just that way there's something else going on screen. So
hundreds of millions of tickets worldwide, etc. This is where the people come in. This is the true form of the stick. The normies, the average Joe, the person who doesn't really know diddly dick about what's going on, who doesn't care, and who, in many cases, doesn't even want to know what's going on, who might even actually be actively resistant to the idea of anything going on at all, until significant political upheaval has occurred to force them to look out their window and go, oh, shit. Yeah, that's pretty awful. This is the true form of the stick. The stick is the majority. It's normies on Twitter, it's normies in video gaming, etc., which, bear you in mind as well, has become largely a normie pastime now. Like, more college frat boys are playing games than ever.
More college frat boys are playing COD and a lot of simpler, straightforward games. And this... I'm gonna cut off for a minor second here. Video gaming has become very popular. Obviously. It's also had a bit of a backslide because, well, we've seen that, like, E3 and a lot of the conferences, they're dying, they're switching over to digital. But simply run with the idea that the masses are just ignorant until the fire has reached their own house. The fire reached our collective houses quite some time ago. And to simply assume that the vast majority are still the ignorant masses, that might be the case in, say, Europe. And, okay. But here in the United States, things got so bad where now the Republican Party effectively has a mandate. Like, woke crap is going away. I mean, earlier today, BLM Plaza literally got torn down. like, at least Americans are sick and tired of this crap, right? And I mean, the vast majority of the video game companies are here in the United States. There's some like Ubisoft, which, well, they're French, but nobody cares. Um, but the vast majority of these games are effectively like Western studios are in the United States. And it seems like there is a new trend in the United States of going, no, we're getting sick and tired of this crap. Even the frat boy Call of Duty guys, I feel like they're starting to notice that Call of Duty is getting kind of crappy. But we couldn't convince them of that. They're going to have to come to that conclusion in their own time. But anyway, I'll let it continue, and then I'll get to the point where I really got pissed off.
And most of them have no idea of the wider, video game space. They just buy the next entry of Call of Duty whenever it comes out, not even bothering to check out the reviews. This is why Call of Duty, despite having been review bombed again and again and again and again, and having had shitter and shitter releases, is still a solid selling product, because the majority of their user base don't actually give a fuck. As depressing as that sounds, most of them just don't care. They just buy the new COD and that's it. That is their entire investment in video gaming. And so again, the gamers, which are the small minority, can't actually get any changes made without mobilizing the stick.
I think that you're making a delineation between hardcore gamers or niche gamers and gamers in general. I mean, even those frat guys playing Call of Duty, we could probably define as gamers. And I also think that they're getting sick and tired of, well, the frumpy women power fantasy girl boss. I think they're getting sick and tired of it too, but maybe I'm wrong.
Stick. Now, moving the stick can be rather difficult. And yet it is the only way to affect large-scale change. The left figured this out as well. The stick was exactly what they used against us during the initial days of Gamergate. The stick is cancel culture. Calling...
Okay, and now we're at the point where okay. Now I can finally really get into it. I think my biggest gripe in this video, and we're only like 15 minutes in, right, is that Arch, you're like talking about like cancel culture and that kind of thing, and talking about the stick as in the general, the general public. All right, well, I don't really think that, like, specifically, like, you're talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance. Focus on what you are effectively trying to make a static change in, right? Like, if you're trying to, focus on Kingdom Come Deliverance, you're not focusing on Call of Duty. That's not your game that you play, right? Trying to go like macro, like micro to macro, it really doesn't work that way. On top of the fact that the thing that really kind of sets me off, right, is you're like, oh, well, the left discovered this a long time ago. It's like, okay, the left discovered how to manipulate people. They discovered a particular way to effectively manipulate the general public into placating to their insane asylum ideas. And it's kind of like, I don't like the idea of using the weapons of mine enemy. And at this point, they've made themselves our enemy. Like, that's not, like, they did that. Right? They were the ones that were attacking us. They were the ones who constantly were talking shit with the Gamers Are Dead articles and all this other shit. Like, they were coming at us sideways and going like, well, the only way we're going to ever beat them is by using the general public as a tool to destroy them. I don't like that. I'm not going to lie to you. That this entire concept of like, well, we're not the stick, the general public is, but we can wield the stick. We can manipulate the stick to work towards our benefit. I don't like it. The fact of the matter is that we as like specifically in the gaming world, it's like, okay, well, we're the ones who made these particular hobbies popular. Like, we do actually still hold the power, but I refuse to use the weapons of my enemy. Like, even amongst friends of mine that are liberal, and some of them are Looney Tunes liberal, even amongst them, I am not trying to manipulate them into my line of thinking. Like, I recognize the fact that I don't have a sledgehammer big enough to break them out of their echo chamber, right? I also don't have like the breath of God where what I say all of a sudden they will kneel to the light and rationale of my position. The only thing that I can do, the only thing I really can do is sprinkle some crabgrass seeds onto the asphalt and watch them take root. That's all I can do to affect change is go like, well, have you considered this? Did you realize this? Like the very fine people hoax and a lot of these other things where it's like, look, I'm not here to manipulate people. I just want to make a straightforward, direct argument and refutation of their position. And that means that I do not want to use their tools, the tools in their toolbox, because we already know that they're kind of like the Ring of Sauron, dude. They're bad. These particular tools are rife with inappropriate manipulation. And I do feel that, like, irrespective as one has an opinion on a soul or something like that, it's bad juju, man. It's not good to use these tools because eventually we will literally just view the general public as something to be manipulated to get our way when it should be our objective to be like, okay, I don't agree and here's why. This is the part of the video that really kind of set me off where I was just like, no, dude, we don't play this way. Like, it's beneath us to operate this particular way. And I mean, people are free to disagree that I guess we need to be able to use the weapons of our enemy. But I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, it will have long-term ramifications where you're concerned of a evangelical Christian revival. Well, if like, where do you think the left learned how to use some of these tools? Like, I have my opinions about like the evangelicals and the whole like, oh, the evangelical right were just the worst, and a lot of people tend to want to bring up like, oh well, conservatives were terrible, but maybe I'll talk about that later. But my point is that if we start using the tools of the enemy, I don't think we'll be able to acquire a position to know when to stop using the weapons of the enemy. Because so long as you use them well and don't overuse them, they were frighteningly effective, weren't they? So let's use rationale. Let's use logic. Let's use principled positions instead of manipulation tactics and simply viewing the general public as a tool to be wielded by our behest.
Your boss and going, hey, you're being a racist on the internet won't have any effect if your boss is like, I don't care. It'll be inconsequential.
That it's inconsequential now because they overuse the use of the weapon. They've had to reassess how they use these tactics. But, I mean, give it time and they'll figure out a way to reuse it again. like a recycled,
However,
rehashed version
if
of
the
it.
majority of people view the accusation of racist as something reprehensible, something immoral, something evil and worthy of having your entire livelihood destroyed over, then suddenly the stick is extraordinarily effective. Suddenly you can destroy people's livelihood with just the implication of it. Not because the word racist has some sort of magical special power, but because the stick imbues it with that power.
And you now want to be the controller and arbiter of that kind of power? Like you're prescribing the stick the manipulation of the stick has this kind of power and you want to use it? Like it's like no. Like we should win on the merits of our arguments and our principles, not by using the low tactics and cunning of our enemies.
Which is, ironically, why you're a racist was such a good accusation to make, because it did two things. One,
It was effective because we weren't inoculated to it. During the early all throughout the 90s and such, sort of like a restoration of good functioning relations between the races. The accusation of being racist was a high crime, that we weren't inoculated to the accusation. Irrespective of whether somebody was a racist or wasn't a racist, it was a case of, excuse me, frog in my throat, is that we weren't inoculated to the accusation. Now we are.
it alleged that a violation, an aggression had been made. You're a racist, implying that you did something wrong. You have committed a moral ill. And it also implies victimhood, as of course you need to be racist against someone. So now you have created an aggressor and a victim class at the same time. And back when society was full of naive blue-eyed...
And so now, we've been the quote unquote victim since, I guess, 2013? I mean, just Gamergate alone was just, hey, we want games journalism to not be hacks. We don't want them sleeping around in order to get good reviews and then calling us every dirty word in the book. And honestly, there's a lot, with a lot of people, there's probably a degree of they want vengeance upon thine enemies. But also, I don't think we necessarily want to view ourselves as a victim. And this entire dynamic of the tool that you want to use, using the stick, it's like, okay, well now we need to be the victims and them the aggressors, so that way we can use the stick in order to achieve compliance. And I'm sorry, dude. I vehemently disagree with this position.
monkeys, they saw victim, aggressor, side with victim, against aggressor. And this allowed the left to do pretty much literally anything they wanted to anyone they wanted for a good 5-6 years, with a simple allegation alone was enough to ruin not only lives, but potentially corporations and families.
Once again, the reason why it was so effective is that we weren't aptly inoculated to it. That we were a naive culture that wanted to just get along with everybody. What's the old saying with video gamers who have become politically activated? All I wanted to do was play video games. We were reasonably naive, and now we're inoculated to this crap.
And only very slowly did we begin to redefine these words and wield the stick for ourselves. And even that, the redefinition of words too, of course, only works so long as you actually have the stick. Only when you are in possession of the majority does your redefinition work. Because you can say for all the world you want, go, actually, didn't I?
I think at least in the United States, the fact that there is a mandate, once again, quantify, I understand that you have this argument that it's basically 1% versus 1% fighting for the attention and approval of the 98%. I don't believe this. I believe that the vast majority of people, how do I put this? I feel like that line of argumentation, kind of makes you sound like, I don't want to say an elitist, I don't want to use that term because I don't think it's correct, but I think it doesn't give enough credence to the general public. It's like, oh, well, the general public are just a bunch of unthinking rubes. They're a bunch of idiots that we have to cajole into a position. I mean, once, as you can see, like the very idea of your concept of the stick is just something I highly disagree with.
I found an example of this that I prepared before we started, but then I got waffled off on a completely different tangent.
I have lost.
When is it? That's not that. Where is it? Ah, there we go, I think. Well, it's somewhere. It's here somewhere. Was I meant to lose it? I probably did. Ah, yes, this. Here we go. Every game you will ever play from now on will be like this. Yes. Unironically, yes. So, this, of course, was the redefinition of beauty standards, where back in the day you had...
Real quickly, and like that chick was, I think, like she was from Saturday Night Live, I think, either that or Mad. I can't remember which. Like, it was either Mad TV or SNL. I can't remember which. How did she be actually legitimately? I'm trying to figure out a way of saying this. Outside of ideological racial politics, because I really don't think she's that good of an actress. Like, how did she actually get as many gaming roles? I mean, I get, okay, maybe she really likes video games. I don't know her story. But she's nearly in everything. And 9 times out of 10, she just basically plays bitchy black chick. It's like from, whatchamacallit, not Castlevania, fucking Wolfenstein to freaking Star Wars. All she does is play bitchy black chick. Like, that, like, is she somebody who, like, really liked video games and so got positions within different, companies? Or was it just, oh, well, looks left, looks right, she fits the bill, good enough? Like, how, can anybody actually tell me how she legitimately got as many jobs as she did? Because I don't think she's particularly that talented.
And, the beauty standard of video games was things like this. Heavy Metal. FAC. Good game, by the way. Huh. I don't know if I'll necessarily define it
Never played it.
quite as such, but solid video game, where this was the beauty standard, obviously so, and yet they managed to redefine it to the point where it became this. And this is only possible with the assent of the majority of the stick. Only with the stick can you go from this to this. And it requires a...
So, the argument being made right now is that only with the manipulation of the general public was she allowed to acquire that position and basically be in just about every video game nowadays. Is that the general public were manipulated by a small minority into putting her into positions in games that honestly she's either been a non-issue, like just something not to care about, or just basically the token character. It's like one or the other. Either she's... I'm really trying not to mince my words here, but in continuing with the argument that you're making is that the general public was manipulated by a small portion of people that, oh, okay, this character, you're exclaiming for beauty standards. I don't necessarily know it was for beauty standards. I think it literally is just for diversity points, not necessarily for attractiveness. Because I maybe when she was younger, she maybe was an attractive woman. I feel like when she was on Mad, she was still reasonably old. Maybe I'm misremembering. But the point is that you're going like, oh, well, in order to change things back or change things for the better, we need to manipulate the general public instead of just going like, hey, maybe you guys can use your good sense. Like we've got to the point where you're now allowed to have good sense again. You don't have to just swallow it and take it. You can just go like, yeah, okay, this is Looney Tunes. No, we need to also be master manipulators. Once again, I vehemently disagree. And like continuing to push this point. Like I understand maybe this is the crux of your argument or the thing that you're formulating. But it's I feel like a terribly unprincipled argument.
Tremendous amount of good old-fashioned brainwashing along the way as well.
I feel like I also
right, so that then is the stick. The stick is most people, and affecting most people to be used in a way that benefits us is how we try to use the stick, of course. But again, we can only do that with the stick's assent. That's the thing. We have to convince the stick that what we are doing is the good thing. Otherwise, the stick will rebel against us. In fact, the stick may very well see us as the aggressor, as demonstrated by the left. How did the left lose control of the stick? Well, by overusing it, by cancelling.
It wasn't just like, once again, the choice of words. I understand English isn't your primary language. I get that. But using the general public, once again, I'm not a leftist. I have no interest in using people. I try to provide my positions. I try to provide like evidence for like my thoughts and rationale. I don't try to use people. And I very much dislike this form of argumentation. That maybe you might want to take the time to reformulate it, because, like I said, it just sounds like manipulation.
People for the dumbest thing. For the perfect example again, the dude with the sexy t-shirt who landed a robot on an asteroid. When you do that sort of thing in front of the majority, they will look at it and go, well, this is obviously unjust. This is obviously not.
Only people amongst our demographic, or people that are probably paying attention to Sargon of Akkad and Thunderfoot, before Thunderfoot went Elon crazy, but only a small set of people like even know about that story. Like the general public doesn't know about that story. So to exclaim that that story convinced the stick that they were, it's like, no, virtually nobody knows that story outside of a small subset of people. Mostly like male gamers and people in the science field know about that story. So, I mean, it's kind of a terrible example of like, oh, the sticks began to rebel because they saw this. Nobody knew about that. Like, I've had to dig that back. I've had to dig that up from the way back machine because people are like, nuh-uh, that never happened. So, even with your example, that didn't prove dick to the stick.
Correct, and you will lose a part of the stick. When Anita Sarkeesian says ridiculous stuff like Batman's cape is there to cover his ass because of patriarchy, you lose a bit of the stick. Until eventually you become the aggressor, as I coined it in the video, the malicious party. And at that point, the stick is handed entirely over to your opposition because you're now the bad guy. The opposition are the good guys, they are the victims, and since the stick always gravitates towards the victim...
I refuse to be thought of as a victim. Like, it's a weak-ass mindset. Like, oh, I'm a victim. It's like, don't get me wrong. They've attempted to victimize us on a number of occasions. I mean, remember with the Battlefield game, where, well, if you don't like it, sexist bigot, don't play it. Like, yeah, they were attempting to victimize us, but it's like, okay, well, then we're not going to play it. And then they'll come out, and they do it with movies too, like, oh, well, if you're sexist, don't come see our movie. Then we don't go out and see it, and then they get mad, and they're like, the reason why the movie or the video game failed is because the sexists didn't go see it. It's like, well, you told us not to. We were respecting your wishes. I'm not a victim, and I refuse to take sort of that sort of weak ass mentality of that, oh, we're a victim. No, they've thrown punches, but they throw them and then they cry as they strike us. And their fragility is now showing for everybody to see in terms of the collapse of the games industry, along with the movie industry. I mean, a lot of these companies are starting to back off
Actually get the
because,
control of the stick.
yeah,
This also comes back to the wider idea of Western populaces, as we are a very charitable civilization, far more so than virtually any other. And so the moment we see an underdog, a victim, we tend to take their side almost regardless of consequences or...
this part I actually agree. I mean, I think probably the only reason why the Ukrainian conflict has gotten to this point is because we as Western nations tend to be overly charitable. I mean, as an example, and I mean this is one of those where I'm from the godless land of California, right? And obviously everybody knows the fires that recently occurred in California. Well, maybe not everybody, but there were some really bad fires in California that part of the fires destroyed a bunch of rich people neighborhoods, but what not a lot of people realize is that there was a second fire that also burned out a bunch of poor people too. Most people were only paying attention to the Palisades fire, not the God, now I'm the asshole, doesn't remember the name of that particular fire, but basically north of Pasadena. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I tend to have a very low opinion of my fellow Californians, or at least a portion of them. We tend to be very ideologically entrenched into leftism. I mean, hell, for the majority of probably the entirety of my life, California has been under leftist control. I mean, let's be very clear. Even when we had the governor, he was basically a conservative in name only. You know, he's a Hollywood Democrat. He just figured that it would be easier to primary out and roll in. I do like if he's a conservative at any degree, it's of the Austrian variant, as we've seen with interviews that he's had. But getting to my point, I tend to say that Californians are a stupid, ideologically motivated, vain people. But here's the thing. We're also a very generous people, believe it or not. That when the fires kicked off, I took time off of work and I started donating my time to the local churches because I have a truck, so I was able to transport supplies from the churches to forward operating zones for the fire department, as well as helping people who had lost their homes. And the thing is that hundreds of thousands of people were donating supplies, foodstuffs, blankets, freaking manners of like fixed shelters. Like a lot of people were donating a lot, so much so that the rally points were getting filled to capacity. The fire department had to stop accepting waters for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons why was because they were dropping them off over at the stations and they just didn't have the manpower to transport those supplies. And I mean, and all the aid groups that were transporting supplies for the people who had been affected. Yes, Californians are a stupid, vain, ideological people. But we also are very generous. So, I mean, I can give us points in that. And the Western world in general is very, very generous. We tend to want to stick up for the little guy, even if the little guy is also a piece of shit.
or circumstances. So, that is a general definition of the stick. Thus, if we wish...
A definition of the stick I reject.
to exercise the woke cancer, we must be able to retain control of the stick. And that's where the tricky part comes in as well. You may wish to simply exercise the cancer by burning everything. The game studio's woke, destroy them all. Okay, but now we become the aggressor. Now, we can use the stick up until a certain point. We can fire people, for example, right now, like the left once did. We can now do that to games developers who are woke. We can say...
Or we can just simply deny them Vita. We can deny them their life sucker. Like, I'm sorry, I identify as non-binary when it comes to these things. I'm not buying it. I'm not pulling out my wallet. I'm not giving them my money. And when my friends ask me, like, hey, what have you been playing? What do you think of this game? I think it's a giant pile of dog shit. And here's why. I'm informed on the issue. I'm informed on what the studio's doing. I'm informed on what the people in said studio's doing. Hell, Endymion, I think today, has a video alleging a massive amount of messed up crap over at Ubisoft. I want to choose my words very careful in that one, but a lot of male feminist behavior, shall we say. So, if I can inform people like, yeah, I'm not buying this game because of these reasons, I think that we have the capacity of light, reason, and rationale. We don't have to manipulate the stick. Like, we don't have to manipulate people. We can just simply go like, hey, this is what they're doing, so maybe it's not a good idea to support this behavior. Just a thought.
You made a gay-ass game, I want your job. Which is exactly what we cried out against back in the old day. You can't take away somebody's livelihood for just doing this thing. That's ridiculous. Well, now we've come around to the point where we've been able to justify that to the masses. But it will only be possible to be justified up until a certain point. Just like with the left being able to do it to us for a certain while. And it's very important to remain aware of that point and sensitive to it. Murky Product, people need to remember that a differing opinion is not a personal attack or a betrayal. That also is true, but to be fair, this is made very difficult by the I forgot the term now. The relationship between content creator and audience. Everything is seen as a slight. And that is, again, just...
I mean, here's the thing. I think it's only seen as a slight if it's kind of like a 180 from what they've been saying previously. Right? I think it only is viewed as a slight when it's a complete 180. If there is a slow evolution of one's position, it is infinitely possible to be like, no, I mean, this is the evolution of their rationale. You know, and maybe that convinces the audience as well. But if it's like, oh, no, we use stick, only stick... Right, and using the stick as in a beating stick, not as in, oh no, we need to manipulate the greater bulk of society to side with us. Like, when we're effectively using our wallets, our platforms, our positions, in order to act as a beating stick on these particular entities, groups, people... and then all of a sudden do a 180 like, well, hold on, guys. We want to show clemency. We want to... It's like, no, screw that. These people have been awful to us. Why should I lend grace? I will only start lending grace when they beg me to stop. And not even then. As far as I'm concerned, we need... Like, it's one of those... where they need to repeat these specific words. We recognize what we did was wrong. We recognize that our tactics and our ideology was incorrect. Please stop. At that point, I would be more than happy to stop. Be like, okay, all right, ceasefire. But they need to recognize they done fucked up. Like, I don't want to use their tools and weapons against them. I don't want to win that way, but what I do want to do is get them to see that they were wrong, that their actions were inappropriate, they were uncalled for. They weren't Western behaviors.
It's part of our little lizard brains, and the fact that text hardly communicates intent particularly well. Settler Rex, $20, thank you very much, sir. 1,000 pardons, Lord Arch, but the stick and only stick means we allow them with no tolerance. We don't need to yell at them, but we don't need to yell at them, but we won't buy, and our apathy will startle them. We don't need KCD2, we'll move on. That, too, is actually correct. We don't need to yell at them part is the important thing there. To tear away from the KCD2 example, take Baldur's Gate 3.
There was a phrase, I don't remember who said it, but it's like the opposite, like the what was it? Basically apathy is the opposite, where it's not rage, it's not hate, it's apathy. It's like, okay, like we just don't care. You are inconsequential. Like mind over matter. We don't mind because you don't matter anymore.
Right? I'm aware the image is off, but I want to do. Oh, actually, that's kind of nice. Take Baldur's Gate 3 is another brilliant example of this. Baldur's Gate 3 is a woke-ass game. It is a woke-ass game. It is way more woke than KCD2 is. From quest structure to later acts design to the companion characters to the way that it uses attractiveness, where all of the male characters are very traditionally female attractive. You know, you've got the wizard guy with a little shade there, who's very soft-spoken, to Astorian. This guy is the purest creation of female fetishism ever.
I agree. I mean, just from like the shorts that I've seen revolving around the game, it's like super leftist agitprop bullshit.
Meanwhile, the female characters are an ugly-looking Githyanki. You've got Shadowheart, who is just in that zone of like, well, you know, she's not ugly, but she's not attractive either, in the way that you can make a character attractive in a video game. She'd be an entirely fine woman in real life, but compared to the fact that this is, again, a video game, and you can have other characters with literally perfect hair and faces and so on, etc., yeah, she was obviously sexualized down from what she was probably intended to be. Baldur's Gate 3 is woke as fuck. However, it is also an enormously successful game, with enormously successful marketing.
I think the only reason why it was a successful game and has successful marketing is because of like the sort of resurgence of D&D. Also, like the other reason why it's probably a successful game is because, let's be fair and honest, the video game field, like the crop of video games when it came out, was just barren. Just absolutely barren. You know, it's like people have been starved for good video games, so like ideological propaganda will, like, when thirsty, even a tainted river will suffice.
And so, you should not attack it.
Also, I'm not gonna lie, I have some really kind of negative opinions of D&D, and even before the new editions where they've screwed with the orcs, they've screwed with the dwarves. Like, I always had a passing fascination with D&D, but I also always had, like, for at least a while now, a couple years, have had sort of a disgust with it too. And part of it revolves around that for some strange reason has become popular, like the popular trope. And it may, like, here's the thing, maybe it always was this way and I didn't know. Like I said, I always had a passing fascination with D&D, but never got into it. But, like, the idea that the bard basically just wants to fuck everything. I mean, I was kind of under the opinion that, like, a bard is like a noble storyteller, like, so, like, with, like, histories that are mostly like oral traditions, like Skald and that kind of stuff, where like their oral traditions, like they make their money with song and dance and you know, basically getting these kind of poetic eddas and whatnot. But it seems like every running gag with a bard is just like, I've got high charisma. I'm going to fuck everything. And I'm like, I get that everybody has a different way of wanting to play a game, and this could very well be an unpopular opinion, but it's kind of like that kind of shallows out the character, doesn't it?
It's simply because attacking it will make you look like a tard. It'll make you look like the guy who is doing the malicious aggressing. Same with KCD2. Now, that does not mean that you need to purchase...
Once again, apathy. I didn't care for Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I've had friends who play it and they're like, yeah, it's ideological to the nines. I'm like, okay, cool, you have fun with it. I'm not touching it. In a game where I potentially have the capacity to have relations with a bear, I'm like, I'm not touching it. That's just weird. And so I'm gonna leave that the hell alone. You know? Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't have my hate. It has my apathy, my disinterest.
the game either. That's the thing. KCD2 is the best example of this. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 is a far easier piece of ground for the left to cover than us. We simply just defend it now as a piece of, oh, it was just a good RPG, and we ignored the woke parts, right? Whereas KCD2 is a 98% our side type of game. It is a very Christian game with 99.9% white characters. It has one woman who kind of sort of fights in like one scenario, but otherwise is simply a spy or an infiltrator, etc. Although most of the female characters are a little bit strong female character, granted, but you get my drift. We don't need to do anything to claim KCD2. You don't even need to buy it. All you need to do is not attack it, and it will already be far more firmly entrenched in our camp.
The entire concept that we can claim a piece of media, once again, this is leftist ideology, this is leftist language. I'm not, I didn't make the game, therefore I'm not claiming it as mine. It's like, the game is either good or it's bad, and if it has cancer in it, unless it receives batches of chemo, I'm not touching it. It like saying like, oh no, we need to claim it as ours. The video game, despite the fact that it has fortresses in it, the game itself isn't a fortress for us to rally our men. It's a single player game. I mean, hell, something like, you might be able to take a game like, God forbid, RuneScape and be like, oh, well, no, this is our shit, the likelihood is, I haven't played in years. I think it's a British studio who made the game. The likelihood is that probably later quest lines and stories and shit, it probably has some left crap in it. I don't know. It's been so goddamn long. But it's one of those things where, like, this is a single player game. This isn't a fortress for you to claim, a position of territory. It's a video game, for God's sakes.
Than the opposition's camp. Although, I will point out, I do believe part of the reason why KCD2 is a more diverse game is precisely because our opposition love-bombed it. Stuff like this, where the gaming media goes up to Daniel Val...
Once again, another form of manipulation. So, like, the entire crux of your argument, Arch, seems to be, like, the left has been better and been the firsts to be able to aptly manipulate people. And we need to learn how to do the same. And I'm going to continue to disagree. I'd rather just be honest with people. Like, I'd rather just give my opinion on something and go, you know, I disagree and here are my reasons why. Instead of going like, oh, well, they're better at love bombing. Okay, so they're, like, if we can point out that their tactics are a form of manipulation, I think the general public, like the general run of the mill person, doesn't like to be manipulated. Like, if you can point out keenly and concisely where somebody is being manipulated, they tend to look at the manipulator very negatively afterwards.
And goes, hey, you did really well with that game. That was a super game. Wow, you're so good. You're so talented. You're so amazing. We're going to give you all the...
Also, like, kind of as a side note, didn't they initially tell him to, like, eat shit and die for the first Kingdom Come deliverance? I mean, like, afterwards, I guess maybe they love bombed or whatever have you. But initially, they were, like, talking mad shit, if I recall correctly, about Warhorse Studios. Calling him sexist, calling him racist, yada, 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 yada. You know, like, the fact that he can't necessarily see or delineate, like, oh, I'm being manipulated, well, then who's the tard in that situation? Like, at least, and keep in mind that Kingdom Come Deliverance is a small game of a small audience. If he can be manipulated this easily, like, GG, gents. Like, clearly this wasn't the studio for us.
the positive coverage from now on. It'll naturally make him more inclined to listen to their points of views. It'll naturally make him more inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt and grant them their requests. Again, this is simple human nature. This is something the left has that we do not. The ability to manipulate the people in power with no scruples whatsoever. Again, the example I brought up in the...
And you're, like, you freely bring up the fact that they have no scruples, but that, like, we need to adapt to their tactics. Well, not adapt. We need to adapt to be able to use their tactics. So do we need to take a zero scruples position too in order to aptly manipulate or wield the stick, Arch?
The video of Feminist 40K, they had the balls to go directly to GW themselves and be like, hey, we're such fans, and we're the good people, we're the feminists, could we use your logo for our own merchandise? And GW said yes. That is the power.
Well, GW is a British company, and if there is any company, like, if there is any country that effectively, like, if you look up the term cuck in the dictionary, a picture of Great Britain is probably one of the first things you probably see, in all honesty. I mean, just as a people, they've basically decided to send their daughters to be street meat for their guests. And if their sons get beaten, who cares? I mean, effectively, the British people have just bent over and taken it. So why wouldn't GW, as a British company, also embody that same weak spirit?
Of basically being a seductive, doe-eyed bitch. Of gold-diggingness, in essence. Something that the right is very, very bad at. And
because it's not that we're bad at it, it's that the vast majority of us, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are manipulators and grifters in every sphere, make no mistake about it, but generally speaking, a right-leaning position is an attempt to have a moral position, a position of steadfast convictions. We choose not to use the weapons of our adversary because we recognize they're terrible weapons.
And for better or worse, it has its own advantages as well. Alex Adamson, by the way, has Lumi told you about having a certain potential guest on? That was brought up the last Lumicast. If not, go talk to her after this. She has not said anything. Lum Lum has been a bad Lum Lum. Cindus. We are going to reclaim a lot of IPs by the mere fact that it's becoming unprofitable for them to continue the way they are going. The corpos fear being the next Concord. Yes. Now, that also again is the difference. The left may claim an IP by love-bombing it, by infiltrating it from the inside, by becoming forum moderators, by taking positions of power within it. Whereas we claim IPs via the stick. We, at the moment, rely mere
I'm going to continue to harp on the idea that like using the whole like, oh, we take over IPs by manipulating the general public to take our position on a given issue isn't a very good argument to make. I think the way we acquire IPs, and okay, I don't even want to use it's stupid language. We don't acquire jack shit. We find IPs we like. We find video games we like, and then we play them. And then we tell our friends of similar interests that, hey, this is the game we're playing, and these are the reasons why we're playing it. We don't take over IPs. We attempt to find IPs of good character, good quality, and, like, standards. Like, is the game good or is it shit? It like one of the biggest problems that I think the left has nowadays is that they will take over an IP. They do not care if the IP survives, so long as with its last breath it says, I'm with her. Or, you know, some other rad fem bullshit. Like, so long as it in its final breaths is willing to chant their mantras, they don't care if it dies. I mean, look what's happened to Fallout, for God's sakes. It's just a dumpster fire now, right? It's just an absolute unmitigated dumpster fire that decides to take an absolute dump on its own lore and its actual fans in the hopes of being popular, right? And they don't care if it dies. They don't care if season 2 of the show absolutely murders the franchise. Now, maybe, like, Todd cares. Maybe Bethesda cares. But the ideological activists, they don't care so long as with its last breath it was theirs. Because they are possessive. I don't think that we are. I think in some ways maybe we've become so jaded where it's like I liked Fallout and I started with 3, so I'm not one of those I played 1 and 2. I started with 3, but I really liked the franchise. But when 76 came around, I was like, okay, well, it's not a terrible game. It's crap, but I mean, I kind of expect I paid attention to what Todd does, and I knew it wasn't gonna be good, but you know, I got my $60 out of it, but then it kept going. Like I can't remember all the little buy-ins that you have to do for that game. But there's so many little tie-ins and buy-ins. Oh, by the way, did you know the Chinese also made power armor? Which, I mean, this completely breaks lore as the reason why we were able to kick them out of Anchorage. But, oh, apparently they had their own set of power armor that was just as good and has similar stats as the Americans. It's like, right, okay. And then you see the same crap that comes in with the TV show, where it's like, oh, okay, so you're just basically going to use the lore as an after evening rag. It's like, no, I refuse to view my media that possessive. I'm like, if you become dog crap, I'm just simply going to walk away. I'm like, all right, well, this is terrible now.
Exclusively on the stick to get companies to turn our way with the threat of cancellation. But again, bear you in mind, cancelled? Cornered rats do tend to bite. There is a danger with using the stick as well, and that is that if we become unreasonable with its application, if, wild scenario here. Let's say that Disney decides to mend their ways, right? And they release a TV show that is out and out based. Like, it
If they choose to mend their ways, it's because we've hurt their pocketbook enough where they've gone, okay, please stop boycotting us. We get it now. Like, okay, we're sorry. We've kicked out all the ideological lunatics. looks.
It is the most, like, dark, sexy, violent Star Wars you've ever seen. Like, it's literally Band of Brothers Star Wars, right? Everything we ever wanted. And if we then look at it, and there's, like...
I mean, that's everything you ever wanted. Now, mind you, it's not a bad idea. It actually sounds kind of cool. But, I mean, I want more of a Star Wars spaghetti western. Like, I like the western dynamic. But, I mean, that's different strokes for different people, so...
Like, one gay character in there with one gay kiss and go, nope, stick, stick, stick. The Disney will then look at us and go, we gave you everything you wanted. You still...
You gave us everything we wanted, except you decided that you just had to ham-fistedly add that gay kiss. All you got to do is remove that last piece, and you've got us as a customer again. Just cut a little bit more fat from the product.
Rejected us. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to go back to the other people again then, because that is what
the other people that didn't buy your product to begin with. I mean, just look at the Acolyte. The fact of the matter is, all the ideological people that were singing that show's praises of like, oh God, you know, awesome, we're getting lesbian space witches. They didn't even show up to watch the show. So it's like, okay, we as the paying customers who actually have the capacity to turn out numbers as the fans, yeah, you give us everything we want, or we say no.
Acolyte was, okay?
Oh,
the
shit.
Acolyte was exactly that. The Acolyte was 99% of everything the left desired in a TV.
And they still didn't show up. Because they never show up. They don't show up in comics. Like, they may, like, okay, they'll parrot the talking, like, the illustrators and the comic books, you know, like, the authors of the comic books will parrot their talking points, but they still won't show up. It doesn't put asses in seats. Whereas, you know, if you give our side what we want, it's asses in seats.
Show. 99% of it. Like, all strong female characters, like one white guy in the entire fucking cast who was a sacrificial pawn, right? Or a villain, right? And yet the left was unable to reward it. Being unable to reward something is just as devastating to a movement as being unable to punish the things you don't like. Because, well, if you can't make something succeed, and you can only make it fail, the company doesn't have a good reason to side with you. Now, we have proven that we can make things succeed multiple times because we do have the majority. By simply not attacking something, we can claim credit for it succeeding. By simply not condemning something, we can say, look, I held the stick, but I did not apply the stick. And that in and of itself is reward. Again, our ability to directly monetarily reward a company is largely insignificant due to the simple lack of numbers. But our ability to wield the stick, or withhold the usage of the stick, becomes its own reward.
I'm going to continue to harp on the idea that, like, telling a company, like, see, we didn't manipulate the general public in siding with us to destroy your IP. I think we all remember when, like, Sweet Baby Inc. was, like, there was that one video, like, you need to talk to, like, your management team, and you need to scare the living, like, they need to give us a call. You need to scare the ever-living crap out of them, so, like, give us a call. It's kind of, like, do you not see how you're basically proposing the same thing with this argument, Arch?
No failures. Gibbs finally reached Musa in his last stream. Found him out of place, but not really offensive or obnoxious. Thoughts? I don't have any, because I don't know yet. I haven't met him either. John Braithwaite, I agree with you on this topic, Arch. I also agree with you that we are the 1% versus the other 1%. But you're talking strategy within earshot of the fired up 98 of your audience. It is time to organize and wield the stick. I agree. Like, see, that's the thing. I understand that what I'm doing here is not going to be popular. Trust me, I know. I see the dislikes. I see people unsubscribing for it. I get it. I understand this is not a popular position. However, I am 100% sure I'm correct on this.
Are you 100% sure that you're right about this because you've thought out this position extensively, or because of ego. Like, Arch, I understand that outside of here, there's a family business. I think it revolves around robotics, and I don't know much more than that, but I would assume a good portion of your monetary gain comes from you being online, from your lore video, like your Arch lore channel, and maybe even like the super chats here. I mean, there's literally a running, not necessarily gag, and it's probably one of the reasons that frustrates your audience so, is that the reason why you'll keep bringing Dev on is because you're milking him for super chats, because people disagree with him vehemently so. Now, I really find that as I don't want, it's kind of seems like an underhanded tactic. It really seems kind of slimy, if I'm being honest. That like, oh, I know that I can milk money out of my audience by having somebody on channel that fervently attacks my audience. So they'll pay me to attack back. It seems kind of shitty, right? But I mean, I'd have to better formulate that part of the argument. But you've been on YouTube for a very long time, and a lot of people listen and kind of give a shit about what you say. So I ask you, are you pretty sure you're right about this because you've really, really thought it through? Or because you've been on the internet so long that you maybe are huffing your own farts? Ask yourself that question in the mirror.
Left ruined itself in a measly 10 years because it abused the stick. And we've all said this again and again, right? The left is in ruins now because it abused its power, because it became malicious, mean, vindictive, aggressive, because it started going after people for lesser and less.
It's been doing that since the 50s, dude. Probably earlier. I mean, Herbert K. Sorrell went after freaking Walt Disney because he was trying to, like, gain control over the Animators Guild. The left has been mean, nasty, and vindictive from the word go. Like, this isn't new, dude.
Lesser reasons for the tiniest and pettiest of things. That is literally what the Gamers Are Over article was. It was, what? You disagree with our ability to use our
The Gamers Are Over article was effectively a brazen waving of their battle standard because they thought they won. It was them basically declaring that they won, that they don't need us. Like, oh, the gamers are dead. Okay, well, Kotaku is almost dead. Like, as a company, it's almost dead. Freaking, is Gamer Rank still around? Anybody give a crap about freaking, like, G4 TV? Like, they screwed themselves because they made a declaration of victory, and we, the consumer of this particular product, gamers, said, wanna bet? Okay, screw you.
privilege to fuck people and give them good reviews? You scum! And such an aggressive assault too. Like, you're dumb, you're misogynist, you're bigoted. It stunned most of us, the sheer vitriol with which it was delivered. But that then
maybe it stun locks some people, but keep in mind that, I mean, as an example, I mean, I don't know your particular starting point, but just as another content creator I was paying attention to, like, this set so many people off where, I mean, you, like, Sargon just wanted to play video games, and now he's, like, philosophizing to the nines about how screwed Europe and Britain are, right? Like, it didn't, like, it, I don't think it stun locked as many people as you think right now it's stun locked. It galvanized us and was the first inoculation I would like to believe that the majority of us started going like, huh, screw these people. Like the first inoculation kicked the living crap out of games journalism, where we don't take them seriously anymore. We don't care for their opinions, and their companies are floundering for it.
Eventually meant that the accusation of "you're racist" was no longer a accusation of you having done anything wrong and they being the victim. Instead, it arrived at the point where if somebody shouted "you're racist," the assumption was that they were the aggressor and you were the victim. If we are not aware of this fact, if we do not understand that using the stick maliciously, overtly, and too often will lose us the stick, then we are simply doomed to do what the left did.
Yes, if we maliciously use people to achieve an ends, eventually those people will become pissed off with us. But that's kind of a no shit Sherlock kind of thing. It's part of the reason why I prescribe to the idea of not using people. Why the very crux of this particular argument you're making, this definition of the stick, infuriates me so goddamn much. You literally are pointing out all the negatives of use and manipulation of people. But you're like, we need to do it, but just more tactfully, more covertly than the left. Like, we need to use this weapon. We just need to be smart about how we use it. When people like myself are like, no, I refuse to use it because I see what it does to people, both the wielder and the victims of said wielder.
It's inevitable at that point. The moment we are perceived as the malicious party by the majority, we're done. We're screwed. It's exactly the same path the left took, which is why I am getting out ahead of that now, like 4 years probably before this actually becomes a problem, mind you, to lay the groundwork for it. Understanding that it is not going to be a popular position, but it is a necessary one. This is why I started talking about gatekeeping long before that became popular. In fact, I made it popular. And
gatekeeping was a great position to take, because effectively it is like, okay, we stick to our guns. Like, we defend ourselves. If we can maintain an appropriate hegemon within a hobby, we don't let ideologues come into the hobby and screw it up. But one big question that I have, like I like the idea of gatekeeping, but I also have a question for you, Arch. If you didn't start gatekeeping a hobby early enough, like let's use Warhammer 40k, alright? Admittingly, like right now, I'm building a Space Marine Interceptor squad. So I'm probably, and also an Orlok gang. So yeah, I'm probably guilty of some shit here too. But the question I have, and this is one that maybe we need to further consider, is that if you didn't gatekeep the hobby soon enough, like if it's a boat, like not a gate, right? And you started like taking on water, whether there were cracks in the boat or holes in the boat, right? And all this ideological water was coming onto the boat. At what point do you simply go abandon ship? Like, we couldn't gatekeep it, we couldn't effect repairs, we can't retake the hobby, the boat is cracked in half and is going down faster than the Titan. Like, at what point do we simply have to go, you know what? It's done. It's over. Pack it in, gents. Like, just cold, calculated, going like, you know what? Screw it. Like, one thing that I think that, like, what you and Sargon are working on your own sort of miniature battle game, whatever have you. Like, and I mean, we're not hearing jack about that. Unlike the alternative, Trench Crusade, that's ideologically possessed, right? It's like, okay, so at what point, if you failed to gatekeep initially, do you simply abandon ship? I mean, maybe Warhammer needs to be sacrificed. It's one of those things where we didn't protect the ships soon enough. We allowed the wrong people to get in charge of it, and we just simply need to, like the Titanic, we just need to let Jack go.
I'm going to do the same thing now. Check in on me in 3 to 4 years, and we'll see where everybody else is, because I'm pretty sure I'm simply just ahead of the curve on that.
Once again, do you feel that you're ahead of the curve on this one because of your ego, or because you've really thought this position out? Because I I understand that sometimes on, streams, people will adopt a kind of a persona, right? And like one of the things that you'll typically adopt in your live streams is that, like, you're right and infallible and everybody else is wrong. And it's cute, but have you ever reassessed your position and gone, you know what, I was incorrect on this one? Having a contentious opinion between oneself and their audience, it's bound to happen, right? But it isn't just on the onus of the audience to reassess their position. Once again, I don't feel like anybody should be manipulated here. I don't think your audience should be manipulated into your position, and I don't think you should be manipulated into your audience's position. But I do believe that probably you need to sit down and go, okay, have I really thought this through? Is this a position I'm really willing to take? It's time to become Smeagol. We need to use the weapons of our enemy, but we need to do it better. I really think that this is one of those rare occasions where maybe you need to set the potential ego aside and go, have I really considered this position? Because I think that's where the major contention between your audience and yourself is coming from. I could be wrong. I'm a nobody. I don't do this. But I feel like I'm pulling at the correct thread here. By looking at your chat and, previous behavior and that kind of stuff, I feel like at the very least, even if I'm missing something, I'm at least pulling on the correct thread here.
Yes. Renault's Arch has a point that we will never win by giving all the ground to the woke. Not all gay or diverse characters are woke. Who draws the line? Because labeling all as woke is R-worded. Arch has a point. See, there's another one. Okay, where is the line? That, of course, is by far the most difficult question to answer. Where is the line? It is impossible to define firmly and immediately. Let's see here. So, I've got a couple other examples from my Twitter timeline. I should start using Twitter more, because it's a wonderful source of examples like this. So, this is a clip, which I can't play on YouTube, of course, from a TV show called Southland. Now, Southland is a great television show. It's an amazing television show that I heartily recommend. It's massively underappreciated as well. It's fantastic, trust me. So, you've got a kid here.
Southland is a good show. I never finished watching it, but from the episodes I was able to watch while it was on serialized TV, yeah, it was a good show.
Who calls the cops on his mum because she beat him with a belt because he was skipping class. And when she confronted him with it, he lied to her face. So he's like, okay, you little bitch, beat his ass with it. That's all she did, just beat him with the belt. The big cop then pulls the kid aside and asks...
On a side note, I feel one of the biggest reasons why we're in this situation that we're in nowadays is because the vast majority of kids weren't hit with the belt. I know maybe there are people out there that disagree with me, but sometimes pain retains. like you learn app lessons through, retention of information through pain. I'm just gonna say, like, obviously there is a an extreme, and like I grew up with that extreme. So, but I feel like the reason why we have people like Johnny Somali, or like you could probably name a dozen quote unquote content creators that are just trash people. And they don't even have to be content creators, they could just be trash people, is probably because they weren't whipped enough as a kid. Just as a side note.
It's a question like, does she beat you often? No, this is the first time. Did she use her fists? No. Does she hit you with any other objects other than the belt? No. Just the belt. Where did she hit you? Right on the butt, etc. That's all. And the cop then sides with the mum and goes, if you call your police on the mum again, I will come down here and beat the shit out of you myself. This cop is one of the coolest characters in the entire show. This guy here, great fucking character. Excellent guy. With a really solid story as well. Love him to death. He is gay. This is revealed, I think, in like season 3 or something. It's way into the show. And the show doesn't make a big deal about it. It comes up naturally, in essence, because the character's kind of forced to reveal it. And he reveals it like it's no big deal. Why? Because it is no big deal. His sexuality does not define him. He is not cool because he's gay. He's not whinging about being gay. He's not using that as an excuse or as a shield. Him being gay is...
Though I understand the position that you're making, and to some degree, I can agree. However, this isn't a real character. He isn't a real, LA police officer. This is an actor playing a role. Okay? And one has to ask themselves, why did that storyline have to be brought up at all? Like, I don't necessarily remember this portion of his character development. Like, I'll be fair and honest. It's been a long time since I've seen Southland. It was a very good show. But I don't remember exactly how this character development happened. But once again, it's a show. And just like with the $70 doesn't buy you cruelty, all these hidden unknown factors. You don't know the reason why this was the way it was. Okay, the question on hand is, why did the writers decide that in a cop drama that they effectively needed to have this particular storyline? Like, yeah, it can very well be like, oh, it's no big deal. Sure, absolutely. But the thing is, we're never going to get the answer as to why the writers decided to make this particular episode and this particular storyline. So just to assume like, oh, it just is what it is. It's like, okay, well, we don't have all the information. And with that, a lot of people are just simply going to exercise caution and skepticism.
Merely who he likes to pork. That's it. That is the representation that I want. A character that simply exists, that is accepted into society as simply that guy, and his sexuality is largely irrelevant, frankly. Is this...
In many storylines, why can't somebody's sexuality be completely irrelevant? Like, is it truly relevant to this? Like 9 times out of 10 in video games, like, other than the spicy cutscenes that can come about with some games, is sexuality in a number of these video games a primary point? Like other than that scene that you get, does sexuality provide anything to the story? And if it doesn't provide anything than a spicy cutscene, and they can be traded out for another character down the line, what was the point other than this spice? Like, I'm obviously part of the group of people who are getting tired of games just being smut-laden. And people are free to have a difference of opinion. It's fine. But I feel like if the relationship doesn't how do I put it? If it doesn't have the proper meat on its bones, that like, oh, it's a relationship instead of just hey, I'm porking it. Like, no. Like, maybe can we go for more substance and less flash?
Is a woke character for just being gay? I would say absolutely not. In fact, I would say that if you were going to ask for representation, this would be how you do it. Meanwhile,
Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree there. I mean, you probably want to actually have. I mean, like when it comes to the gay community in general, I feel like, how do I put this? The representation that at least the vocal majority, or like, not, excuse me, not the majority, the vocal minority have chosen as their sort of battle standard characters. I mean, wasn't it a couple years ago that like people were like Baba Yaga and freaking Pennywise were like a gay romantic couple, where there was like this personification of like identifying with evil, that they're on our side, where it's kind of like, that's kind of a really shit take, guys. Like, like these are the like these are your icons. These are the people that you're gonna hold up. So I can agree where like a character like him probably is a better representative, but it seems like the gay community has had a nasty habit of more times than not picking crappy representatives.
well, if you see something like this, for example, is this woke? Yes. Yes, this is woke. Painfully so.
It's also really cringe. It's not just woke, it's cringe. It's performative in nature. It's like, once again, it is none of my business who somebody chooses to share an evening with. And generally speaking, like, I tend to run by this phrase, just simply put. How do I put it? Because I want to make sure that I'm not you. Okay. Slob a knob or chew on the carpet. What you choose to do in your own hotel, motel, house, duplex, or convention center, so long as the blinds are drawn, it's none of my business. But just like we have decency laws for teenage kids who decide to go out on a side road and start making a car steamy, I ask for the same respect to the law of the gay community as well. And unfortunately, they've been able to have a pass and have every year a full-blown freak show where, like, you've got guys in full gimp outfits with things shoved up their hindquarters doing unspeakable things to one another in full view of children. All I ask is for the same, hey, we have decency here. What you choose to do in your own domicile is none of my business. But once it's in public, it is my business.
Now, not always is it going to be quite so clear-cut, mind you. That's the problem. And that's where we need to be wary of the masters. KCD2, again, to bring up that example. Is KCD2 woke? Alright, does it have woke elements? Definitely. Should those woke elements be called out when appropriate? Absolutely. When you have an opportunity to do so. But should it be lambasted as just woke, woke, woke? Well, no. For tactical reasons, it should not. For the simple...
I think there was a comment in the lower section of this video that exclaimed, when having to use chemo, you don't stop at 90%. Like, you don't cut, like if you have a cancer or a virus, you don't stop until you get rid of the virus, or if the treatment itself is doing far more damage than the virus. And at this point, with Kingdom Come Deliverance, I do not believe we're doing sufficiently more damage. Like, it's one of those things where if Warhorse Studios goes down the tube because they decide to make these discretionary decisions, well, then the virus succeeded in killing the host, and we just move on. If they learn their lesson, they're like, we're not gonna do that again because it nearly destroyed our company. Yeah.
Simple fact that 96% of everybody else likes it, which means that our 1% is yet again arguing with the 96, which makes us come across as the bad guy.
96% of the general population, hell, 96% of gamers don't really give a crap one way or another about Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's literally a niche RPG game that takes place in Bohemia. Like, you're literally talking about a very small portion of the gaming community that really care for or like Kingdom Come Deliverance. So, I mean, I don't know what its lifetime player count is going to be, but if you feel that you're going to get COD bros into Kingdom Come Deliverance, and so we need to sort of moderate a position where, like, oh, we'll tolerate the woke stuff because the general public is willing to tolerate some woke stuff. It's like, no, this is a very, like, it's like RTSs or like JRPGs or whatever have you. This is a very specific type of game for a very particular niche audience, right? It's like, this isn't going to be setting off Marvel Rivals numbers. It never will. So you have you and your 700 people that are like were watching this stream have a lot more power here than you ever will have with a major AAA title. I really feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot and like undervaluing your capacity to institute change either through apathy or just going like, hey, you decided to pull some woke shit, so yeah, we're not playing it. Like a consumer boycott on, like a small scale consumer boycott on Kingdom Come Deliverance, probably be significantly more successful than anything you could ever do to COD.
Nice. Alright. So example here, wallet voting is working pretty well. It is, so long as we have everybody was.
One thing I'm going to do, just because this video is probably getting well into the realm of like EFAP territory, I feel like once I hit the 50-minute marker, unless it's like right in the middle of a point, I'm going to cut the video from there because I don't want to be up that long. I feel like I'm belaboring the point. So we'll go for a couple more minutes. And like I said, Arch, I'm not trying to take shots at you untoward. I like your content. I like a lot of the stuff you put out, except Vrox Remastered. I don't anyway. If you're gonna do a remaster, it needs to be Armageddon, because hell, you need to put the Yarok and Thraka videos together. But anyway, we're gonna go to 50. Unless there's a very specific point, I'll cut it from there because probably people are bored listening to me run my suck. And probably, yeah, anyway.
Wallets. This is socialism. Everyone's wallets. Vote together. That's how we achieve progress. Anyways.
I know you said that as a joke, but do you not once again realize effectively the idea of using the verbiage of the enemy? like like that's kind of my point, is that you have enough self-awareness that you realize you're using their language, but at the same time I feel like you don't realize that you're like supporting the idea of using their tactics, and like we've become disgusted by their tactics. Us and the general population have become disgusted by their particular style of warfare.
Now that I've laid enough of the groundwork, I can actually get to some of these. I like this one too. I see Archie still larping as a right winger instead of admitting he's 2000s liberal. I don't. I think I've always been a 2000s liberal. Yeah, I think that's largely my position, with, of course, now the understanding that the left is nowhere near as benevolent a force as they made themselves out to be. Liberalism obviously requires a large-scale reform and a severe tightening of its liberal lean.
For somebody who will effectively talk about ad nauseum with people like on Side Scrollers about Antonio Gramsci, like you realize the modus operandi, the mechanics by which they use, but you'll still effectively identify yourself as a 2000s liberal. Like just a little bit of self-awareness.
In essence, but that's why I always also say right-winger with quotation marks, because I don't really identify as right-wing. It is simply just a term that we are using today to differentiate, more correctly, ourselves from the left. Because, you know, we're...
I need to differentiate myself from the left so that way right-wingers will give me money. Like, okay, it's probably around this time frame when I first watched the video that I got really pissed off around the stick, and this was where I started getting heated again. People are free to have whatever political persuasion that they want, but the entire idea that it's like, well, I have to be on this side because the side that I supposedly identified with in the past, their position has changed, and so therefore I don't want to call myself this, but I must. It's like, okay, like, you need to understand the practical realities of the situation that you're in. Like, the left and right in terms of ideological forces, I don't want necessarily they're static, but they both have like pillars of what their ethos is, right? And it's the left that tends to be subversive. You've literally done a video on like the five foundational pillars, like, you know, care, fairness, loyalty, purity. Like you've done a video on this. You clearly understand the differential between these two ideologies. Are you basically saying that you're like, well, I'm actually part of this demographic, but like I have to identify with this demographic because I'd get purity spiraled from the other one because I use jokes and God damn, another frog. Jesus. I'm fucking trailing, but it's like, for somebody who has such a keen level of awareness of the situation and some of the moral fundaments here, I feel like you're saying some stupid shit.
Stuck in the very, very narrow left versus right paradigm, those are the terms we use. In reality, we should be using something far broader. But again, the problem there is that liberal doesn't actually describe me anymore.
Right now, for all intents and purposes, the Republicans have the big tent. They have RFK, they have Tulsi Gabbard, they have Elon Musk. Hell, they have Donald Trump, who at one point was a cosmopolitan Democrat. All right? Freaking Elon Musk was having conversations with Obama about green energy initiatives and that kind of stuff. Tulsi Gabbard is literally from Hawaii, the state that basically was burned to the ground by its own government, but God bless them. They will vote blue no matter who. But at least Tulsi was like, these people are freaking insane. So if you're talking about big tent like big tent, like broad tent, like, well, we need to exercise a big tent. I think the conservatives are doing a reasonably good job, at least in the United States, about having a quote-unquote coalition or big tent.
Either. Because at this point, I am all for government intervention on many, many, many things. Using the government to actively purge DEI, for example, is something I am all for now. Many of my opinions...
Okay, I agree with you there. But I think the way of purging DEI is effectively shrinking said government. I mean, the reason why government has effectively become so bloated, at least in the United States, I don't know about Europe, because like I said, I don't care about subjects. I only care about citizens. But in the United States, the way you deal with DEI is by shrinking the government. Is the government eating itself, in a sense?
Have deviated significantly from liberalism, even though the 2000s, that is my goal. I want to go to the 2000s, because everything was fucking better then. The problem is, of course, you gotta go to the 2000s without then...
And this is this was probably maybe about 20-30 minutes after this where I cut it initially. And the reason being is because this is like the Devian argument, like the short fat otaku argument to a T. Like, oh, well, we need to go back in time. It was a better time back in the 2000s. It's like, okay, but here's the thing. As I said previously with California, California has basically been under uninterrupted democratic rule for more than 30 years. Like, more than 30 years, it's been under uninterrupted democratic rule. Okay? And it's progressively got worse and worse and worse. You're exclaiming that you want to go back in time to the point where you didn't notice it. I would once again refer to the Razor Fist video about Hollywood, like, always having communist leanings. Like daring the House Un-Americans Committee. The only reason why you started noticing is because the dark eye of Sauron started noticing your medium, our medium. Like, these video games, they're kind of interesting. It's clear that they'll likely supplant traditional movies. We should probably take this over. You want to go back to the time where they didn't notice you. We can't go back in time. Time marches forward. So, I'm sorry, tough shit. We can't go back in time. We need to make the best of where we're at now. And I argue the only way to make the best of it is to push as hard to the right as reasonably possible. That because we're not getting like we haven't even gotten back to a centrist position. Like, we're not back to the center yet. We're nowhere near close. Dragon Age the Veilguard was only a couple months ago. It's now a free game, but it comes from a AAA studio. Like, we're not near the center yet. And as far as I'm concerned, we, of our generation, have actually never seen what it's like when the right is actually in control. We don't know what that looks like. We think we do under, like, the Bush era, when, for all intents and purposes, Stephen Colbert and fucking The Daily Show were during that time frame, and it contaminated an entire generation of young people's brains. Just absolute freaking brain rot. Okay? The left was still in control of the culture then. I mean, like, on Comedy Central, there was literally a show called Little Bush. Alright? Like, the left has been in control of the culture since well before you or I were born. And I assume you're a little bit older than me. Maybe you're younger than me. I don't fucking know. Maybe we're the same age. Once again, I don't fucking know. But they've been in control of the culture since, like, our entire time being alive. Simply saying, like, well, I don't want the right to be in control of the culture. During your lifetime, they never were. The only thing McCarthy ever did wrong was stop, as far as I'm concerned. This cancer should have been plucked root and stem before we even ever got here. But we have to deal with it now. And until such time as they both say, we're sorry, we recognize we fucked up, and we now cry uncle, we don't stop.
The follow-on slide into left-wing progressivism that ruined it all. So the question is, what
My point stands that you're only aware of the slide when it started affecting your media, when they got their eyes and you piqued their interest, when our hobby piqued their interest. Like, they're like, huh, this Halo thing, like, you are, I feel like for somebody who is aware of, like, the notations from Antonio Gramsci, you're doing a lot of jumping around in the time frame. Like, in the time continuum here, you're going like Antonio Gramsci, from this time frame, and then everything was magical, and then they fucked with video games. It's like, you do understand that this has been a consistent, persistent backslide.
values of the 2000s can we adopt and utilize today, and what values will need to be cauterized to stop any further falls. Remember how the Culture War started? You give them minutes, they take a mile. You don't let up. When your enemy's reeling, you press the advantage. That is what the Games of Dead article writer thought as well. Exactly. So this goes back to the stick. That they were in a position of absolute political power and could simply crush the enemy, but in doing so, they appeared unhinged and ridiculous. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice and expecting different outcomes. So, I also want to make clear here, I am not bringing up these to dunk on them. That's not the purpose of this. This is simply to give me the examples, and then I can, have my brain spin off from it. As this is exactly that. You don't give up when your enemy is reeling.
I understand that you're basically doing like sort of a thinking session. Still, I do think that you need to reevaluate this position, in all honesty. I think you really need to hammer out the finer points in terms of what you feel is an appropriate like operating strategy here. 'Cause, like, you remember when Vosh said, my goal is to win as a socialist, not lose as a socialist? Like, basically, in essence, screw having principles. My principled position is to basically lie, cheat, and steal so that way I can win. I feel like if you're not careful, you're going to be approaching the same territory. Now, keep in mind, like, years and years ago, there was, like, and he actually recently posted some of his videos, Teal Deer, where he used to have sort of these bandied back and forth thinking sessions with some of his audience. I mean, I was never that good with stats and statistics, but I occasionally watched them, and they were kind of interesting. So, I mean, sitting around with maybe a cigarette or a beer and, just bandying these ideas back and forth isn't a bad idea. But I really feel like you need to hammer out the plank positions before you exclaim that this is the way of the future.
Press the advantage. That is what the Gamers Were Dead article was. It was the left saying, we have the absolute moral authority. We are the ones who decide what is right and what is wrong. And if you disagree, we will simply crush you. As the majority then, and us as well, looked at that and thought, that's not right, that's cruel, the stick shifted. Again, the stick. Always be wary of where the stick goes. So I feel a significant difference between people getting fired due to political persecution and people getting fired simply.
I mean, once again, I have to exclaim that the stick in this particular regard was exclusively to gamers. I mean, do you think the Gamers Are Dead articles was picked up by soccer players or football hooligans? Like, I it's like, no, the Gamers Are Dead articles were a direct attack against gamers. And so, therefore, exclaiming, like, oh, the general public was on our side. Well, if that was the case, then GG would have been substantially more successful than it was the first go around, if that was the case. So, I once again, I think that you really haven't thought this through. I think that, like, within the gaming sphere, the Gamers Are Dead articles galvanize the gaming public to give a resounding middle finger, like, the consumer. And that's kind of where these sort of beginning boycotts started to bubble, where the companies basically paid attention to the media. Like, the actual game producing companies paid attention to the people that were publicizing their games. They didn't pay attention to their consumer base. And so they'd bring on Anita or whoever else as consultants, and it really damaged the industry. So, even under your logic, the greater stick didn't move at all, and the actual consumer wasn't able to do as much damage as we should have. The fact of the matter is, in this particular regard, we probably should have had better follow through. Like, I feel like we should have gone on the offense. Like, we should have probably started putting money together to establish our own video game journalist entities and call out people like Nathan Grayson. I mean, how does somebody like Nathan Grayson still have a goddamn job after the shit he pulled? Like any other journalist who was caught literally with their pants down in this particular regard would be out on their ass. They'd be a laughingstock. But this guy still writes articles. So you really need to think about this a little bit more.
Because no one wants to buy their politically infested games. So this too is political persecution. Voluntary disassociation only brought about by the majority choosing to do so. Exactly. And the majority did so because we acted upon them in the same way the left once acted upon the companies to create those infested games. This is the same thing in result. Now, we argue, of course, that when we wield the weapon of cancel culture, which we very much so are, against companies largely rather than individuals, which is a crucial distinction to make, we are doing so for the correct reasons. You have aggressed upon me, therefore I am now going to aggress upon you. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. You ruined my childhood, I'm going to take your job away. Entirely fine. But we do need to understand that that is, of course, the same thing that they did to us. But our reasons are better, and we have convinced the majority that our reasons are better. However, that does not mean that we can't arrive at a point where we are attacking an unjustified target. Again, like KCD2. If we do that, then we are in the exact same position as the left, and they will see us.
You have no idea whether it's a justified or unjustified target. Once again, I will refer back to the whole $70 cruelty, yada, yada, yada. You don't know what his reasons for putting that particular character or the same-sex relationship or, I mean, one of the cutscenes I saw was basically a prostitute deciding to get mouthy to the main character who's in full plate armor with a sword because she's brave, strong woman. Like, if you're going historically, she probably would have gone like, yeah, okay, this isn't worth my life. Like, it seems like a large, like, at least from the clips I've seen, yeah, for this particular genre and, like historical drama, yeah, they've definitely made the female characters probably more high strung than they probably would have been in real life. And the thing is, not even in a cunning way. Like, I can't remember the character or the show, but there was something along the lines of, like, women have a particular type of strength. They have a particular way. Maybe it was Game of Thrones or something. I don't remember. But they basically have a certain way of cajoling and acquiring obedience or acquiring support. It's sort of like a particular type of cunning. And, like, I'm not going to lie to you, from the few clips I've seen for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I'm not seeing that particular cunning. I'm seeing sort of like a. Yeah, I'm. Like I said, I'm not seeing that sort of cunning. I'm seeing more like, you can't touch me. And it's kind of like, it's like, I am like I can, I'm just as good as you are. It's like, well, in this historical end, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, there was very different levels of reality that were laid upon men and women at that time.
Us taking somebody's job away through cancel culture and go, that's not right. And we'll go, but I thought you agreed with us. No, they never did. Not to that extent, anyways. The sinews of war is gold. Give the gold to the enemy, lose the war. Surrendering a mine completely to the enemy loses the war even more so than a mine is 90% ours to begin with. That, of course, is the KCD2 argument again. KCD2 is already 90% our game. And seeding...
It's not our game. You have, like Arch, do you have stock in the company? Like, what makes you think that it's quote-unquote ours? Having that degree of possessiveness over this particular IP. Like, okay, if you own stock, then maybe you can say it's 15% mine. But this degree of possessiveness, like this is your gold mine, I legitimately don't understand. It's either I'm going to play good games or I'm going to play bad games. And probably from what people have been seeing me play, I have a fascination with very old bad games, but that's just me.
10% of that to the enemy so that we may retain 90 is absolutely worth it. At the very least, it is far more worth it than seeding 100%. And then looking at the next KCD2, who might be even woker and might still sell great because of the name of its predecessor.
This one isn't selling, like here's the thing. Like, it's a bait and switch. For all intents and purposes, I think if you're using the mine example, if the mine has already been sacked, like you're exclaiming, we own 98% of the mine, well, 90% of the mine and they own 10% of the mine, if they already took all the gold and ran off, all you have is a barren hole in the ground. You know, exclaiming like this is somehow like, it's like, no, this doesn't work. Like this idea of possessiveness, like you don't have any control over what the art, like what the game director, the art director, what these guys are gonna do. All you can effectively go is like, I'm gonna buy it or I'm not gonna buy it. And a lot of people are taking the position of being a non-binary in this particular regard.
Holding 90% of a position is better than abandoning all of it for no gain.
Depends upon the position. Like if you're talking about strategy, what was it? I'm pretty sure I can't remember the name of the battle. You know, get Sargon on and he'll probably tell you the exact battle. But I'm pretty sure the French with their heavy cavalry had 100% of the mudded position, the position covered and caked in mud. You know, whereas the British archers, you know, had the 10% position at the top of the hill. Using these like strategic analogies only work when you truly understand your position on said battlefield. And I feel like, going back to the barren mine, having 90% of a barren mine is kind of worthless. So,
Let's see. I hear what you say, Arch, but I don't want to give money to these companies or to say that I claim this game, even though I know it has stuff in it that I am not going to like or enjoy. And that too is entirely fine. You don't need to put money into it. Again, Case 2 is, at the very beginning, a 98% our style game. We need do nothing to take it over, which is our advantage. We now own the stick, and sour, help me. And so our ability to use it or not use it is all. We don't even need to hand them the stick.
Once again, you're going to have to clear up the position on how we own 98% of Kingdom Come Deliverance, how we own 98% of anything if we have no monetary position within it. We play it or we don't play it. We don't own jack. You're going to have to really flesh that out to make any of this make sense.
Or reward them, merely not striking them with it is sufficient, which is very, very nice.
Not feeding them also helps. I don't need to strike my enemy, I just need to deny my enemy of sustenance. Deny my enemy succor.
I'm going to keep up with these as well. Alex Nunn. Hey, Arch, what do you think if the Wayward Realms the AI game master is going to have seems like what you say the future of gaming will be? The Wayward Realms. Is that the, is that Morrowind thing? It is, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
So I've been keeping an eye on this, and I'm very excited for it. It's going to have an AI game master, is it? Interesting. That's the first thing I've heard of it. But I'm really excited for it, because I do think that working AI into these games is going to be absolutely crucial for the long term. That is going to be the next big iteration. I tell you, I'll make this prophetic declaration right now. The next big thing won't be like graphics, because that was the big thing, right? Graphics, better game. The next thing is going to be AI.
Yeah, that's the one aspect in gaming that I don't necessarily understand. I mean, hell, okay, admittingly, I'm not playing old school RuneScape, so but I'm not a complete graphics whore. I've never understood with PC players the entire concept. I'll be fair, outside of major jank Fallout 4, right, where you'd have these major screen tears, and where just things would go absolutely off the rails. I've never understood oh my god, this is 1080p. Oh god, I'm only getting 34 frames a second. It's probably the plebeian me. I mean, I'm more of a console gamer than anything else. I'm slowly getting into computers, but I've never been that much of a graphics whore. So I don't know, but anyway.
AI. The next thing is going to have, is your AI better? Is your game AI better? Like Bethesda's AI engine. That is going to be the next thing. Not a graphics engine, but an AI engine. And then all of the various companies are going to compete over making the best AI engine with the most immersive experience and the best ability to generate quests, responses, companion chatter, etc., etc. That's going to be the next big thing, in my opinion. Blaystone, don't forget Streamlabs, Bartley, Curry. I shall endeavor to do so. Hopefully. Let me just point that down to the Curry fund as well. While I'm here. Right, I should do the Streamlabs one as well.
Sorry about that.
Oh, I see there's lots of rumble as well, Captain. I was hoping for this to be a slightly more free-form discussion. Blaystone, I mostly think you're correct, Bartley. Just screwed up your presentation. Problem is, you appear too many as advocating amnesty instead of justice. Well, Case 2 is woke, and they're writing it best, claiming should be reserved for worthwhile battles and properties. Vice versa, lots seem emotionally charged and forget that feels before reals is why we won in the first place. But now just want revenge. Revenge will not solve anything long-term, only justice will. Curry fund for both because late and Californian. Well, there's the thing. When you say justice is an emotional term. Justice is revenge. Justice is, they hurt me, I'm going to hurt them back. And in many cases, that is justified. Indeed, that is one of the reasons why we are now wielding the stick.
Look, I'm not the defender of the faith by any stretch of the imagination, or having, a super keen, justice. I don't I feel like, and I mean, people can crucify me for this, but I don't feel like justice and revenge are the same thing. I feel like there are certain pre-established parameters, whereas revenge is just a baser sort of reaction. Like it is one of those, they hit me, I hit them back. That's revenge. Where I feel like there are far more prereqs in terms of a fair and appropriate conclusion with justice. I, justice and vengeance, revenge, can go hand in hand, but I do not believe that justice and revenge are the same thing. Maybe other people will agree with me on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm trying to complicate something that is simple. But I feel like something like Blackstone's formulation, like something like having 100 guilty men go free just to ensure one innocent man doesn't suffer. There are additional prerequisites to justice and a fair conclusion than just simple revenge. I don't know.
Because we do have a justified cause for revenge. However, that revenge will eventually run out. And we need to start sooner rather than later, because we don't necessarily have that many opportunities to fuck up before we lose control of the stick. Bear in mind, again, the left lost virtually all of its power within only 10 years. If we start fucking up now, then in just 10 years' time, so like two presidential elections, we will have lost all of the goodwill we've built up. Not only that, we will arrive at the point where our opposition is yet again justified to cancel us. Which is why we need to get out of...
Once again, and I know we're getting real close to where I'm going to cut the video off, because I'm pretty sure people, are getting sick and tired of listening to me talk if anybody ever watches this. But here's the thing. You're only going from when the Eye of Sauron noticed you. You're like, oh, it only took them 10 years. They've been around and pulling this shit for far longer than 10 years. It's that they got complacent and we got inoculated to their tactics. It took a long time. And I remind that I don't think in your country or in my country that we have legitimately seen what uninterrupted conservatism even look like, what real conservatism looks like. Like, we've always had this liberal ideology that effectively has controlled the very way how we think about things. That the vast majority of people look at everything from a liberal lens. Even if they're a quote-unquote conservative, they still look at everything from oh, I don't want to be seen as this because the liberals will hate me. Well, it's like, okay, so you're dictating your battle tempo by the ideations of your opposition. We've never lived in a time of legitimate conservatism. So I'd say instead of immediately going like, hey, we need to hurry up and rush through the time warp to somehow get back to the 2000s when my hobby wasn't noticed, but screw the rest of the culture, despite the fact that this is all interconnected. Like politics is downstream from culture. Okay, well, they had the cultural hegemon for God knows how long, so we need to root and stem this shit, personally.
Ahead of this as early as possible, which is again why I'm taking up this unpopular position now, rather than when the writing is on the wall and we're going, oh my god, why is everything on fire? Well, actually... So if I were to Archlight, we're literally going to repeat the past since we've been here before, where the work subverted and people left. You're literally just opening the door back up. Well, that is the past. That is the past. If we simply start doing what the left did, we will repeat what the left did.
And literally you've stated that you want to go back to a previous position. Like, instead of marching forward to a potentially new and unknown position, you want to go back, like, you want to do something that's impossible. You want to go back to the 2000s. We can't do that, but your stated goal is to go back to that time frame. We can't do that. All we can do is arm ourselves rationally and march into an unknown future, but have a reasonable expectation as to how we're going to conduct ourselves.
If we wish to... See, the left excluded everyone. Full purity spiral. If you're not 100% with me, you're against me. I'm going to lock you out, I'm going to cancel you, I'm going to throw you out, you are not a part of my club. How did that work for them? And why should we assume that it will work better for us? I don't think it will. So if I was also Arch, in case it isn't supposed to have player choice, you're playing Gay Knight Henry, who lived in Bohemia that didn't have black people. In it at the time, O'Hara said it was the first game. He did, but it is going to have player choice. Henry is not a real character. You are not playing a walking simulator. You are playing a role-playing game. You can make choices and decisions, even if they are not, as large as I would prefer them to be. So I don't think it's a 100% like historical simulation game by any stretch of the imagination. Nor do I think that was the intent either. Nor do I think
All right. We've gotten to basically 50-30. Before I, here, tell you what, I'm going to log this out. I'm going to basically make just sort of like a final notation, because I'm not looking, like, Arch, look, here's the deal. I'm not trying to step on your balls, all right? I hopefully what, like, if you come across this video or somebody else comes across this video, and here, let's just shut that shit down, and we'll go here. Here's the deal, all right? I'm not just attacking you for the sake of attacking you. Like I said, there's a lot of things I respect about what you do, in terms of a lot of the lore content that you've made and a lot of the positions that you've taken, unpopular or otherwise. I also feel that even though a lot of us despise Dev, I remember that when you were probably one of the biggest lore channels, you tried to give a bunch of people an elevation, right? And a large portion of those people, unfortunately, stabbed you in the back, right? And you could have been wary. You could have basically said, screw everybody else. I'm only going to think about myself. I'm, yada, 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 yada. But you still stick up for your friends, even when your own audience is like, screw that guy. You need to get rid of him. You're like, no, he's my friend. We don't always agree on everything, but I'm going to hold my friend up even when he screws up. Personally, I think you should turtle fuck him. Never mind. But I respect a lot of the things that you do. And I'm not doing this to just attack you for no apparent reason. But like I said at the very beginning of the video, I feel like you're wanting to adopt the tactics of the enemy. And when I say enemy, I really do mean it. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, we need to, actually use physical aggression or anything like that, but an ideological enemy. But you're like, well, the tools worked for them, and so long as we use the tools with measure and restraint, we could use their tools against them for far longer than they used them against us. And people such as myself are going like, no, that is inappropriate. The reason why we've gotten to this position where we've broken away from their tools is because we recognize them as disingenuous and manipulative and wrong. And so I would say perhaps you need to reevaluate your position here. Perhaps you have to reevaluate what you're trying to get across. Maybe you can formulate form something similar, but I think you're wrong here. I really do. And I hope at the very least, irrespective of whether you come across this or whatever have you, I really hope that you reconsider this position because, like I said, I really do feel like you're wrong here. Anyway, to Arch and to anybody who decides to watch this god awful video, this steaming pile of crap, I wish you a fantastic rest of your day and good tidings to you.